The confusion surrounding former President Edgar Lungu's burial has turned into a national storm, with his family, PF officials, and the government locked in a silent war. What's really going on behind the scenes? Confusion, tension, and unanswered questions. What's really delaying the burial of former President Edgar Chagwa Lungu? In this urgent political update, we break down the growing rift between ECL's family, the Patriotic Front (PF), and the Zambian government. From secret meetings to protocol disputes, the nation watches as this solemn occasion turns controversial. Pushpin: in this video, you'll learn why ECL's burial has been delayed, statements from the family and PF leadership, the government's official position and funeral protocol, what this means for national unity and public trust, exclusive public reactions from Lusaka and beyond. Speech balloon: this isn't just a political debate, it's about legacy, dignity, and the soul of a nation. Why ECL's burial has been delayed. Introduction: the controversy over ECL's burial. The death of Edgar Chagwa Lungu, Zambia's 6th Republican president, on June 5, 2025, marked a somber moment in the nation's history. A lawyer by profession, Lungu served as president from 2015 to 2021, navigating Zambia through turbulent economic and political times. His passing at the age of 68 in a South African hospital, where he was receiving treatment for cardiac complications linked to a long-standing battle with achalasia, was expected to unite Zambians in mourning. Instead, it has sparked an unprecedented controversy, with his family's decision to delay the repatriation of his remains and ultimately bury him in Johannesburg, South Africa, rather than Lusaka, Zambia. This decision has ignited a public and political firestorm, pitting the Lungu family and the opposition Patriotic Front (PF) against the Zambian government led by President Hichilema. The controversy stems from a breakdown in trust between the Lungu family and the government over funeral arrangements, exacerbated by Zambia's polarized political climate. The family's refusal to repatriate Lungu's body, citing breaches of agreed-upon protocols and political interference, has led to accusations of insensitivity from both sides. The government's insistence on a state funeral, contrasted with the family's preference for a private ceremony, has deepened the rift. This standoff has not only delayed Lungu's burial, but also raised questions about national unity, public trust, and the legacy of a former head of state. This article explores the reasons behind the delay, drawing on statements from the Lungu family, PF leadership, and the Zambian government, as well as public reactions across Lusaka and beyond. It examines the implications for Zambia's social and political fabric and considers what this saga means for the nation's future. Statements from the family and PF leadership. The Lungu family and the Patriotic Front have been vocal about their grievances, framing the delay as a response to the government's alleged overreach. On June 20, 2025, family spokesperson Makibi Zulu issued a press statement announcing that Lungu's funeral and burial would take place in Johannesburg, South Africa, in a private ceremony. The family expressed gratitude to the South African government for its non-interference and respect for their wishes, contrasting this with their distrust of the Zambian government. The statement highlighted a visit by South Africa's Minister of International Relations, Ronald Lamola, who conveyed condolences on behalf of President Cyril Ramaphosa, underscoring South Africa's diplomatic sensitivity. The family's decision followed weeks of tense negotiations with Zambian authorities. Initially, an agreement was reached for Lungu's remains to be repatriated on June 18, 2025, to lie in state at his Chifwema residence, followed by a state funeral on June 22 and burial on June 23 at Embassy Park, Zambia's official presidential burial site. However, the family accused the government of undermining this agreement by issuing a draft funeral program without consultation, including plans for President Hichilema to receive the body and preside over the funeral, actions that contradicted Lungu's explicit wishes that Hichilema should not come anywhere near his body. The Patriotic Front, led by acting President Given Lubinda, has supported the family's stance, accusing the government of politicizing the mourning process. Lubinda's initial announcement of a 7-day national mourning period was later overshadowed by the government's declaration of a 16-day mourning period, which some PF members viewed as an attempt to control the narrative. The PF has framed the government's actions as disrespectful to Lungu's legacy, alleging that the administration sought to use the funeral for political gain rather than honoring a former president. Posts on X reflect this sentiment, with some PF supporters claiming the family's decision to bury Lungu in South Africa was a direct response to the government's insincerity. The family's statements also emphasized a desire for dignity and peace in mourning Lungu, suggesting that the political climate in Zambia made a state funeral untenable. Bertha Lungu, the late president's sister, expressed disappointment at the government's unilateral actions, such as announcing roadworks along the funeral procession route and restricting public participation, which she claimed violated agreed-upon terms. The PF echoed these concerns, framing the government's actions as an attempt to marginalize Lungu's supporters and sanitize his legacy, particularly given accusations of human rights abuses during his presidency. Family's side of the story. The Lungu family's narrative centers on their desire to honor Edgar Lungu's wishes and protect his legacy from what they perceive as political manipulation. Makibi Zulu, the family's lawyer and spokesperson, has been a key voice in articulating their position. He stated that the family's decision to delay repatriation and ultimately bury Lungu in South Africa was driven by a lack of trust in the Zambian government government's commitment to a dignified process. The family pointed to specific incidents that eroded their confidence, including the government's release of a funeral program that included Hichilema's prominent role, despite Lungu's explicit instructions to exclude him. Lungu's strained relationship with Hichilema, dating back to the 2017 treason charges against Hichilema during Lungu's presidency, looms large in the family's reasoning. Hichilema's arrest and detention in solitary confinement, which he described as degrading and inhumane, created a deep personal and political rift. The family believes that allowing Hichilema to preside over the funeral would dishonor Lungu's memory, given their history of animosity. This sentiment was reinforced by Lungu's reported instructions that Hichilema should not be anywhere near his body, a directive the family sought to uphold even after initially agreeing to a state funeral. The family also cited logistical and procedural grievances. For instance, the Road Development Agency's announcement of roadworks along the funeral procession route on June 16, 2025 was seen as a deliberate attempt to disrupt plans. Additionally, a statement by the Secretary to the Cabinet on June 17 restricting public participation in receiving Lungu's body was perceived as an attempt to limit the PF's visibility during the mourning period. These actions, the family argued, demonstrated the government's lack of respect for their wishes and Lungu's legacy. The decision to hold a private funeral in Johannesburg was framed as a way to ensure a dignified farewell, free from political interference. The family praised South Africa's neutral stance, particularly citing the support of Minister Ronald Lamola and President Cyril Ramaphosa. They expressed hope that Zambians would understand their decision and called for unity and peace during the mourning period, emphasizing that their choice was not meant to divide but to protect Lungu's dignity. The government's official position and funeral protocol. The Zambian government, led by President Hakainde Hichilema, has maintained that it seeks to honor Edgar Lungu with a state funeral befitting a former head of state. In a statement on June 19, 2025, Secretary to the Cabinet Patrick Chagwa acknowledged the delay in repatriating Lungu's remains and expressed national disappointment, but reaffirmed the government's commitment to a dignified and united send-off in consultation with the family. The government argued that a state funeral was necessary to reflect Lungu's service to Zambia, regardless of political differences. The government's proposed funeral protocol included repatriating Lungu's body on June 18, 2025 via a private charter, with Hichilema receiving the remains at Lusaka's airport. The body was to lie in state at Lungu's Chifwima residence, followed by a public viewing at Mulungushi International Conference Center for 3 days, a state funeral on June 22nd, and burial at Embassy Park on June 23rd. This plan was intended to balance the family's desire for privacy with the nation's expectation of a public mourning process. Hichilema has publicly called for unity, emphasizing that Lungu's death should be a time for Zambians to come together. In a Facebook post on June 22, 2025, following a meeting with South Africa's Minister Ronald Lamola, Hichilema reiterated his position that Lungu should be buried in Zambia, stating, "We affirmed our firm position that His Excellency Mr. Edgar Lungu should be laid to rest in his homeland, the Republic of Zambia." Foreign Minister Malambo Haimbi echoed this sentiment, urging patience and unity to resolve the impasse. However, the government's actions have been criticized for lacking transparency and sensitivity. The unilateral announcement of roadworks and restrictions on public participation were seen as breaches of trust, reinforcing the family's perception of political interference. Information Minister Cornelius Muikwa defended the government's intentions, stating that it sought to ensure a dignified process, but acknowledged the challenges posed by the family's distrust. The government's insistence on Hichilema's involvement despite Lungu's wishes has been a sticking point, with some arguing it reflects a desire to project control rather than foster reconciliation. PF's demands and statements. The Patriotic Front has aligned closely with the Lungu family, amplifying their concerns and framing the controversy as a symptom of broader political tensions. The PF's primary demand is that the government respect the family's wishes, particularly Lungu's instruction to exclude Hichilema from the funeral. Acting President Given Labinda has accused the government of exploiting Lungu's death for political purposes, pointing to the premature announcement of funeral plans and restrictions on public participation as evidence of bad faith. The PF initially proposed a 7-day national mourning period, which was overshadowed by the government's 16-day declaration. This move was seen as an attempt to marginalize the PF's role in the mourning process, given Lungu's status as the party's leader until his death. The PF has also criticized the government for failing to support Lungu during his illness, with some members alleging that the administration's neglect contributed to his death abroad. Posts on X from PF supporters reflect this sentiment, with one user stating, "The Lungu family did not want the involvement of the current government in the funeral of the late ECL. This outcome is exactly what they wished for." The PF has also used the controversy to rally its base, framing the government's actions as an attack on Lungu's legacy. Some party leaders have gone further, accusing the government of whitewashing allegations of human rights abuses during Lungu's presidency to present a sanitized version of his tenure. The PF's demands include greater consultation with the family, transparency in funeral planning, and an apology for what they perceive as disrespectful conduct. However, their rhetoric has also been criticized for inflaming tensions, with some arguing that the party is exploiting the situation to score political points ahead of the 2026 elections. What's what this means for national unity and public trust. The delay in Lungu's burial has exposed deep fault lines in Zambia's political and social landscape. A moment meant for collective mourning has instead become a flashpoint for division, with the Lungu family, PF, and government at odds. This standoff risks eroding public trust in institutions and undermining the spirit of One Zambia, One Nation, a creed Lungu himself championed during his presidency. The controversy has highlighted the lingering bitterness from the 2017 treason charges against Hichilema, which many Zambians, particularly PF supporters, view as a defining moment in the rivalry between the two leaders. The family's decision to bury Lungu in South Africa is seen by some as a symbolic rejection of the current administration, reinforcing perceptions of a divided nation. Church leaders, including the Council of Churches in Zambia, CCZ, Evangelical Fellowship of Zambia, EFZ, and Zambia Conference of Catholic Bishops, ZCCB, have called for calm and mutual respect, warning that the state of uncertainty is affecting the general functioning of the nation. They emphasized the need for collective healing, stating the Lungu family needs healing, the government needs healing, and Zambia as a nation needs healing. Public trust in the government's ability to handle sensitive national matters has been tested. The perception that the government prioritized control over consultation has fueled accusations of insensitivity, particularly among Lungu's supporters. Conversely, some Zambians view the family's decision to bury Lungu abroad as a politicization of grief, questioning why a former president would not be laid to rest in his homeland. This polarization risks deepening mistrust between political factions, with potential implications for the 2026 general elections, where Lungu was seen as a potential unifying figure for the PF. The involvement of South Africa, particularly through Minister Ronald Lamola's diplomatic efforts, has added a regional dimension to the controversy. While South Africa's neutral stance has been praised by the Lungu family, it has also underscored Zambia's internal divisions, raising questions about the government's ability to manage national crises without external mediation. Government's official response. The Zambian government has sought to project a message of unity and respect despite the escalating tensions. President Hichilema has publicly expressed condolences and emphasized the need for Zambians to come together during this period of mourning. In his meeting with Minister Lamola on June 22, 2025, Hichilema reaffirmed his commitment to burying Lungu in Zambia, stating that it was in the nation's interest to honor a former president on home soil. The government has also responded to specific criticisms. Secretary to the Cabinet Patrick Chagwa acknowledged the family's concerns but urged patience, stating that the government remained committed to a dignified process. Information Minister Cornelius Mwitwa echoed this, calling for an end to divisive rhetoric and emphasizing the government's willingness to work with the family. Foreign Minister Malambo Haimbi appealed for unity, noting that the government's actions were guided by a desire to honor Lungu's legacy as a former head of state. However, the government's decision to end the official mourning period on June 19, 2025, after the family's refusal to repatriate Lungu's body, was seen by some as premature. Hichilema's announcement during a national address that he had cut short the mourning period sparked criticism from PF supporters, who viewed it as a sign of disrespect. The government countered that it sought to avoid prolonging uncertainty, but this move further strained relations with the family and PF. The government has also faced scrutiny for its handling of logistical issues, such as the roadworks announcement and restrictions on public participation. While officials have denied any intent to disrupt the funeral, these actions have been interpreted as evidence of poor communication and coordination. The government's insistence on Hichilema's involvement, despite Lungu's wishes, has been a particular point of contention, with critics arguing that it prioritized political optics over sensitivity to the family's grief. Exclusive public reactions from Lusaka and beyond. Public reactions to the controversy have been mixed, reflecting Zambia's polarized political landscape. In Lusaka, Lungu's stronghold during his presidency, many residents expressed disappointment at the government's handling of the situation. This is a time for unity, not politics, said Mary Fairai, a market vendor in Chiwama. The government should have listened to the family instead of pushing their own plan. Others, however, supported the government's position, arguing that a state funeral was appropriate for a former president. Lungu served Zambia, and he deserves to be buried here with honor, said Joseph Moyle, a civil servant in Lusaka. Beyond Lusaka, sentiments vary. In the Copperbelt, a PF stronghold, supporters rallied behind the family's decision, with some organizing memorial services to honor Lungu. The government failed him in life and now in death, said a PF supporter at a Kitwe gathering. In contrast, areas with stronger support for Hichilema's United Party for National Development (UPND) expressed frustration at the family's refusal to repatriate Lungu's body. Why take our president to another country? This is a national loss, not a family matter, said Grace Bonda in Livingstone. Social media, particularly X, has been a battleground for public opinion. Some users praised the family's decision, viewing it as a stand against government overreach. The Lungu family is right to protect ECL's dignity. Hichilema's involvement would be hypocrisy, wrote one user. Others criticized the family for politicizing the issue, with one post stating, Zambians deserve to mourn ECL at home. This is bigger than family disputes. Negative sentiments also surfaced, with some users making inflammatory remarks about Lungu's legacy controversy and the family's motives, including baseless claims about seeking asylum to access looted wealth. Church leaders have played a prominent role in shaping public discourse, urging calm and reconciliation. The CCZ, EFZ, and ZCCB issued a joint statement on June 19, 2025, calling for both sides to find common ground. This is a national loss that calls for collective mourning and respect, they said, emphasizing African traditions of resolving disputes after burial. Their appeal has resonated with some Zambians, who see the controversy as a distraction from honoring Lungu's memory. Public reaction across Zambia. The controversy has reverberated across Zambia's diverse regions, reflecting the country's complex political and cultural dynamics. In Lusaka, protests erupted in some PF strongholds, with supporters accusing the government of disrespecting Lungu's legacy. "We voted for him, we loved him, and now they won't let us mourn him properly," said a demonstrator in Kanyama. These protests, while small, highlight the emotional weight of the issue for Lungu's base. In rural areas, where access to information is limited, reactions have been more subdued, but no less divided. In Eastern Province, Lungu's home region, many expressed sorrow at the prospect of his burial abroad. "He was our son, and he should rest here," said an elder in Chipata. In Western Province, a UPND stronghold, some residents supported the government's call for a state funeral, viewing it as a matter of national pride. "A president belongs to the nation, not just his family," said a teacher in Mongu. The diaspora has also weighed in, with Zambians in South Africa and beyond expressing mixed feelings. Some in Johannesburg attended a PF-organized memorial service, where Lungu's widow spoke of unity and healing. Others criticized the family's decision, arguing that it deprived Zambians of closure. "I'm here in South Africa, but I wanted to see ECL laid to rest in Lusaka," said a Zambian student in Cape Town. Media coverage has amplified these divisions, with outlets like Lusaka Times and Zambia Monitor reporting on the controversy in detail. Some editorials have called for compromise, while others have taken sides, reflecting the polarized media landscape. Social media platforms, particularly X, have seen heated debates, with hashtags like #ECLBurial and #ZambiaUnity trending in mid-June 2025. The bigger picture: what happens next? The delay in Lungu's burial raises broader questions about Zambia's political future and the management of national mourning processes. The decision to bury a former president abroad is unprecedented in Zambia's history and could set a precedent for future disputes. It also highlights the challenges of navigating personal rivalries in the context of national ceremonies, particularly in a polarized political environment. For the Zambian government, resolving the impasse will require delicate diplomacy. President Hichilema's administration must balance its desire to assert authority with the need to respect the family's wishes and maintain public trust. The involvement of South Africa's Minister Ronald Lamola suggests that regional mediation may play a role, but the government will need to address domestic concerns to prevent further escalation. The PF, meanwhile, faces a leadership vacuum with Lungu's death. His potential role as a unifying figure for the 2026 elections made his passing a significant blow to the party. The burial controversy has galvanized PF supporters, but risks alienating moderate voters who value national unity. The party's ability to channel this energy into a cohesive strategy will be critical in the coming months. For the Lungu family, the decision to bury Lungu in South Africa may provide closure, but could also strain their relationship with Zambians who view it as a rejection of national heritage. The family's call for unity and peace, as expressed in their June 20th statement, suggests an awareness of this tension, but their actions will be scrutinized as details of the private funeral emerge. The broader implications for national unity are profound. The controversy has exposed the fragility of Zambia's political cohesion, with historical grievances resurfacing at a time meant for healing. Church leaders, civil society, and regional partners like South Africa will likely play a role in mediating dialogue, but the onus is on both the government and the family to prioritize reconciliation. Legally, the prolonged delay in repatriation raises concerns, as noted by UPND consultant Mark Simue. He warned of potential health, diplomatic, and legal implications, urging the family to allow a state funeral in consultation with the government. While these concerns have not been fully substantiated, they underscore the need for a resolution that respects both family wishes and national interests. Final thoughts and call for unity. The delay in Edgar Chagwa Lungu's burial is a tragic reflection of Zambia's political divisions, but it also presents an opportunity for healing. Lungu's presidency, marked by economic challenges and political controversies, was a polarizing chapter in Zambia's history. His death could have been a moment to bridge divides, but the standoff over his funeral has instead deepened them. Both the Lungu family and the government bear responsibility for finding common ground. The family's desire to honor Lungu's wishes is understandable, but their decision to bury him abroad risks alienating Zambians who see him as a national figure. The government, meanwhile, must acknowledge the family's grievances and demonstrate greater sensitivity in its approach. Zambians across the political spectrum have expressed a desire for closure. The church's call for collective healing and adherence to African traditions of resolving disputes after burial offers a path forward. As Zambia navigates this crisis, the spirit of one Zambia, one nation must must guide all parties toward reconciliation. In the words of the Lungu family, we continue to seek peace and unity amongst fellow Zambians during this time. This sentiment, echoed by church leaders and many citizens, should serve as a reminder that Lungu's legacy, however complex, belongs to the nation. By working together, Zambia can honor his memory with the dignity he deserves and emerge stronger as a united people.